I've harped on kitchen lighting countless times before, and its importance to the overall functionality and aesthetics of our kitchens. Now, this video isn't that. In today's video, I want to do a short course on how to harness natural light within our kitchens. A few weeks ago, I walked through the top 10 kitchens, or top 10 kitchen photos saved on house.com up until this point of the year. Now, there was one theme that I didn't really talk about in all of those photos, and it was quite common amongst all of the kitchens, and that was natural light. With an increased movement towards sustainable building practices, taking advantage of natural light in our homes is no longer a luxury. It has become a necessity. This is seen in many of the homes built today, loads of windows, flooding the interior space with natural light. This is the daylighting strategy. Capturing light that falls on the exterior facade of our homes and transporting it to the spaces where it is most needed inside. Before I get into some of the methods or solutions to increase the amount of natural daylight within our kitchens, I want to take a second and discuss the Footcandle. If you've never heard of this before, don't worry, most people haven't, but bear with me for a minute. A Footcandle is a unit of light intensity, defined as 1 lumen per square foot. Full, unobstructed sunlight has an intensity of approximately 10,000 foot candles. A completely overcast day, about 100 foot candles. Twilight sits at around 1 foot candle, and a full moon falls at 0.01 foot candles. That paints a bit of a visual of the different levels of light. At this point, you're probably wondering how any of that has to do with kitchen design, but hang tight, I'm getting there. The filtering effect of glass can reduce the actual amount of light that reaches the interior of our homes by some 50 to 90%. Leaving somewhere between 1,000 and 5,000 foot candles. This is still an amazing amount of light, considering interior residences only seek to provide roughly 5 to 40 foot candles for general spaces, and 70 to 90 foot candles for workspaces, like our kitchens. Harnessing that energy isn't always as simple as just placing a window in an exterior wall. There's often interior elements of our homes at play, like internal dividing walls, or an internal layout that restricts or prevents adequate access to natural daylight. However, for each of these there is a solution. Let's get into those solutions now. The first solution is through color, or lack thereof. We can take advantage of neutral, light-colored, or reflective surfaces to help bounce daylight throughout our homes. Whether it's through cabinets, a backsplash tile, the countertops, or even just the wall color, pale shades, a satin or glossy paint finish, glass elements, or reflective stone are all great ways to bounce light throughout the space. Interestingly, a bold, bright backsplash can have a similar effect on the room. And the added bonus, it gives a pop of color to the space as well. Now, just be cognizant if you are going down this route, stick to 1 or 2 colors to keep the look cohesive and controlled. Finally, don't ignore your flooring. This covers a large square footage of your space and can greatly impact how light a room feels. Dark floor coverings have a tendency to absorb light and make the space feel smaller, whereas lighter tones can provide another reflection point for natural light. The finish, whether glossy or matte, will also play a role, although to a lesser degree. The next solution is to utilize light from an adjoining room. Borrowing light from another space is not a new concept in interior design. If we think back to mid-century modern homes, you often saw wooden wall-dividing structures that gave a sort of visual breakup to the space or a defining factor to different rooms while still allowing the transfer of natural light. This eventually morphed into the open concept living we know today. Our kitchen no longer needs to be tucked away in the corner, hidden away from the rest of the living space. By opening up those walls and including the kitchen with the rest of the social areas, it inevitably increases the amount of natural light that's able to filter through the home. By opening up those walls and including our kitchen with the rest of the social areas, we naturally will increase the amount of natural light that's able to move throughout our homes. Now, what if you still want all that natural light, but you're looking for some sort of visual definition to the space, similar to those mid-century modern homes? Well, there's solutions for that as well. Interior walls can be built to disperse light rather than collect it. In this room, a glass partition is used to define separate spaces between the dining room and kitchen, while still allowing the transfer of daylight. Both spaces are also painted in a manner where the walls and ceilings are able to collect and disperse light throughout the space, giving the overall impression of a kitchen filled with natural daylight. Clear glass will transmit the greatest amount of light and prevent the disruption of sightlines. Opaque or semi-translucent glass will still transmit light, but increase the level of visual privacy. In both cases, glass partition walls can also aid in decreasing sound movement throughout large open spaces, leaving the capacity for multiple small gatherings to carry conversation without background noise pollution. The more we open up our interior spaces, the easier it becomes to bounce daylight around, from areas with good solar exposure to those with poor exposure. Then there is the oldest trick in interior decorating, and that is through the use of mirrors. And I'm not talking about covering your wall in those mirrored tiles. We can borrow a similar concept when it comes to kitchen design. Strategically placed mirrors allow us to bounce or reflect light into an area where we need it most, giving the impression of a lighter and more airy space. Now, this can be applied in several different manners. In this photo, the designer cladded the island and backsplash area with large mirrors. These two long horizontal surfaces do wonders to reflect the natural light flooding in through the dining room doors. An added bonus, it almost makes the island disappear, giving the effect of a floating countertop. Now let's be clear, I am not advocating in any way to go out and clad surfaces of your kitchen with mirrors like that last photo. In fact, when I look at that kitchen, all I see is work. Countless hours cleaning and constantly looking after those mirrors to remove the fingerprints of kids or nose prints from my dog. However, it does accomplish the goal of dispersing natural daylight. In this kitchen, a paned mirror is strategically placed behind the kitchen sink, giving the impression of another room behind the wall and more open space. The black panes give it a similar style to the first photo we discussed, making it look more like a window than a mirror. In this space, a mirror is placed in the transition zone between the kitchen and living area. In the reflection, you can see a direct transfer of light from the large windows on the opposing wall, helping to brighten up what would be a rather dark kitchen. I've got a question for you. Would you be surprised if I said that kitchen with the window pane behind the kitchen sink was designed by Joanna Gaines? Probably not. Now, we move on to the very last method, and it's probably the most obvious of the bunch, and that is through the inclusion of windows, skylights, or doors. Unfortunately, the majority of us don't seem to allocate enough of our budget to changing the exterior facade of our homes, by adding more windows or doors. And when it comes to kitchen design, window placement is often a tricky task or subject. Too many windows, and we run out of places to put wall cabinets. Too few windows, and we wind up with a dark space. Simple solution here is to prevent crowding of any windows you do have. By leaving space on either side of kitchen windows, you naturally allow more light to enter via a wider beam. Placing cabinets directly next to windows can also give the impression of a crowded kitchen. Another solution is to opt for skylights or light tubes. This is even more relevant if the kitchen sits in the center of the home without access to any exterior walls. Skylights can be strategically placed to highlight specific features within the kitchen, and can generally remain out of the way when it comes to placing cabinets. Light tubes are a simple technology that can channel light to where it is most needed, using highly reflective, flexible tubing. They are especially effective where a lot of glass is not possible or maybe not desirable. Consider placing multiple solar tubes for a more intentional design. A grouping of 3 is generally a good place to start. Sometimes the solution to more natural light isn't complicated. Kitchens often have an access point, a door to a back or side yard. Consider replacing that door with a glass variant to allow more natural light into the space. Doors can have a substantial surface area, allowing for a large amount of natural light to enter a room. In this photo, they took advantage of all available space by adding in a set of French doors. Taking it one step further, the archtop adds a touch of architectural interest to the overall design. Increasing the amount of natural light within our kitchens is often one of the most costly portions of a renovation. It often means extending that renovation past the immediate walls of our space, tackling either load-bearing walls or changes to the exterior facade. However, I'd argue it's budget well spent. Thanks a ton for joining me this week. Until next time, bye-bye.